A couple weeks ago, I had the great pleasure to share with you on YouTube an inside glimpse into a Hasidic Jewish home when we were hosted by Pearl, who showed us around her lovely place in Hasidic Williamsburg. This video is part 2 of that conversation, as I'll share with you the deeper dialogues I had with her as we walked around her home, and she engaged me in absolutely delightful conversation. Before we do, to catch you up if you're new to my channel, my name is Frida Weisel. I was raised in the Hasidic community, and although I left it, I continue to learn and explore it as a tour guide in the neighborhood and also on this channel where I try to document and share many aspects of this fascinating world. A little bit about our hostess, Pearl. Pearl is a Satmar Hasidic woman who has lived in Williamsburg almost her entire life. She has raised children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and like many Hasidic women, her foremost career has been to dedicate herself to her family. She's been married for a very long time, and a couple of years ago she celebrated her 50th wedding anniversary, and she brought to it the same oomph she brings to every aspect of her life. She and her husband showed up to the festivities in a horse and buggy, dressed like shtetl Jews with straight faces, much to the howling delight of her entire family. That's what I love about Pearl. She defies all of our expectations. Her candor and warmth were very, very meaningful. We began our tour in the dining room looking at the giant bookcase filled with religious texts, most of which were in the language of Biblical Hebrew. Since in the Hasidic community of Williamsburg, the role of studying the text is one designated to boys and men, the girls and women are not taught to master the language of the books, and instead they learn Yiddish and English. I asked Pearl how she felt about this, and this led to a conversation about what the role of women in the community is. Does it bother you that you can't read, for instance, this?
No, I'm so happy.
Why? I don't know if you're pulling my leg.
Could you imagine if we had to do this besides housework? If we had to study the Talmud?
Is that your philosophy? What is your response to like the very opposite conversation where it's like women should have access to these things?
Women should absolutely not have access to this. No, we have a much, much, much more important job, a much more prestigious job. We are raising the next generation of Jews, right? That's our job. And not everybody understands it, and you don't really understand it when you're young, but you get a different perspective of when you're old, when you're a great-grandmother like myself, and then you understand what a career that is. A career that brings you so much, satisfaction in life. And not only that, but satisfaction for the rest of your life. Which career gives you satisfaction after it's over? Like, when you stop raising children already? When you already raised your children and you're still enjoying the benefits of raising Yiddish children who are, our children are very, very good. I don't know if you know.
I believe you.
Our children are very respectful. Caring, kind, loving. The relationship between parents and children. And I imagine this goes across the Yiddish world. Not necessarily Hasidish. But the relationship between parents and children is so intertwined. You see this community? Why do you think we keep doubling our population every seven years? Everybody wants to stay and live around their parents.
Yeah.
Now, this goes against modern, contemporary wisdom, right? Which teenager doesn't want to get away from his parents in the modern world?
Maybe they want to get away here too. They just...
No. I worked many years ago with about between 10 and 15 girls who had just left school. We worked together in one office. I was like older than them. I was like their mother's age, and the rest of them were, young kids who had just started working. I wish you could have heard how they loved their parents, how they respected their parents, how the relationship between parents and children. I'm talking about a functional, normal home. Of course, we have dysfunctional homes too, but we're not necessarily talking about this. I'm talking about a functional, normal home. It was amazing to listen to them talk about their parents. Their parents were their heroes.
So the parent itself is investing in that. The child grows up, and that's
a satisfaction.
Do you think there are Williamsburg women who are upset about this, though? That this being inaccessible? No. You see your husband studying and you don't say, well, let me get a piece of that.
No.
No?
No, because I know my role is my role. I'm a female, he's a male. The male has the male role, the female has a female role. We are not jealous of each other's roles. You do yours and I'll do mine, and I'm very happy with my role. Why would I want something that's his business and that's his obligation? I have my obligation. I'm not looking for new obligations.
I hear you.
And we don't want to switch the obligations either.
It's very refreshing to hear a very different view. You know, it's very unorthodox with anything that is contemporary.
This is our mandate. Our mandate is to be a nation apart. We know about the outside world. We know about what's going on. You can't not know if you're living in the middle of New York. But our mandate is to be a nation apart, and I don't think the outside world understands this. We are happy to be a nation apart. We want to live in our own ghetto, our self-made ghettos. As far as we're concerned, the outside world cannot offer us anything better than what we have. Let's hear. Stick up for the outside world.
You want to have a debate?
Yeah.
You want to have a debate? Actually, I had an interesting experience. So we had a tour earlier today. This is a little bit different of what you brought up, but I had this, I think she was a woman from, either it was the woman from Ireland or from South Africa, who said, aren't they obligated to the larger world? And it was interesting because it created a debate between the Orthodox doctor on my tour and that woman, and they stood for quite a while trying to talk it out. Not so much what does the outside world have to offer us, but aren't you obligated to the outside world?
Yes, we are. So we look in the Torah, and what does the Torah tell us? Any question that you're going to ask, I'm going to have to say, what's the Torah view on this, on my views? I don't have a view. I have a view that the Torah tells me what should my view be.
Uh-huh.
So to answer your question, we have a tremendous obligation to the outside world, which is to make the name of Hashem known to the rest of the world. That is really our mandate. So basically the Torah, because it's made for all people actually, if the whole world would live according to the instructions of the Torah, we would have a utopia.
I see.
But the outside world doesn't understand that. And we've been in gulas for so many years now.
In exile.
That there's this tremendous disrespect for the Torah and for Jews as somebody who can show the world a way to live.
It's a perspective shift to understand where you're coming from, right? Do you understand? Do you see where?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, you do see it. Okay, let's keep moving because otherwise we're not going to see your house.
Hashem has 7 qualities which enable us to put our trust in Him. So if we say Hashem loves us, it means so much more than when we think in human terms of how much you love, let's say, a child. Hashem loves us is much deeper meaning.
Gotcha. I hear it. I mean, I can't understand it because the meaning is too deep for words for me to understand it.
It's true.
True.
But that's the purpose of learning about Yiddishkeit, which I personally and everybody that I know continue to learn. It's not like we were raised with this teachings, and now we go into adulthood with the same teachings. That wouldn't make any sense, right? So we keep upgrading our learning, and depending.
Considering you're not studying the books, how are you upgrading?
There's so much material. We are the people of the book. There's so much material in every single language and on every single topic. If somebody wants to learn, there's limitless.
In Yiddish?
In English, in Yiddish, in French, in German, in Spanish, in Italian.
I'm talking about Hasidic women of Williamsburg are not reading French and Italian.
So either they like to read Yiddish, or I prefer to read English. Oh, this is cute. These kids.
Pearl, can you explain what Chemish Sida is?
Yeah. Chemish Sida is when a boy turns 5, and for the first time is starting to learn Chemish. Chemish is the 5 books of Moses. Mm-hmm. So there's like a big celebration. Like there's a big deal made about this, because they are now starting to learn the Torah inside the book.
I sometimes see the Hasidic kids walking around.
Not as an abstract concept where you teach the children songs about Hashem and the Torah, but this is the first time that they're going to learn the
Literally.
Torah inside in the book. The book, 5 books of Moses. My great-grandson is there.
Oh, your great grandson. This is their. They gave you
They
this.
gave a booklet, right?
Oh, okay. Nice. That was sweet.
Yeah, that's why I was there.
A lot of our conversation touched on the Satmar Hasidic dynasty, which both Pearl and my family are affiliated with, and therefore we make references that aren't particularly self-explanatory, so some contextualization is in order. The Satmar Hasidic dynasty is one of many Hasidic groups, and this one originates in Eastern Europe on the border of Hungary and Romania from the town of Satmar. Originally, before the Holocaust, the Satmar sect was not particularly a prominent group, but after the war, as most of the Hasidic dynasties were wiped out, the Satmar leader, Joel Teitelbaum, rose to prominence as he stepped into the vacuum, and he is in many ways credited to the profound and powerful revitalization of the Hasidic movement. And many survivors, Hasidic survivors, who were looking for a new leader, found one in him. The Satmar dynasty began with Joel Teitelbaum, or as he might also be referred to, Yoel Teitelbaum, or Rabbeinu Yoel, as Pearl refers to him, and after the death of its original and very, very important leader, he left no heirs, and therefore his nephew, Moses Teitelbaum, stepped into the vacuum. Moses Teitelbaum is also referred to as Moshe Teitelbaum, or as he's referred to by his book, The Baidach Moshe. He was the leader during my childhood as I grew up in the Hasidic community. During the final years of Moshe Teitelbaum's life, a schism erupted between 2 of his sons, the older one Aaron and the younger one Zalman Leib, and ultimately the Satmar sect split in 2, so there are now 2 Satmar groups, one led by Aaron and the other by Zalman Leib. The current Rabbi Aaron is the one pictured on Pearl's wall and is also the one that my family has pledged loyalty to. So
This is my Rebbe, our Rebbe, Satmar Rebbe.
also my Rebbe, you know.
Oh, congratulations!
My family follows the. Go on, he said Rabban Teitelbaum.
Rabban Teitelbaum, right, yes. We're Satmar Hasidim.
I think it's unusual. Most Satmar Hasidim are actually not from Satmar.
Well, Satmar wasn't that big.
Right, yeah.
And people in Europe, people travel to Rebbes. You know, all different people constantly travel to Rebbes. And of course, Satmar Rebbe, Rabbeinu Yoel, my Rebbe.
The original one.
Right, to whose school I went, and you know, who was really, really a leader, a tremendous, tremendous leader. I mean, he brought Hasidus back into America, back to the way it was in Europe. And that was a feat that was, everybody said it can't be done. He did it.
So you were born in.
I was born in a DP camp.
You were born at DP camp
in Austria.
In Austria.
Yeah.
When did you come here? Which year?
1949.
1949.
I was 2 years old.
You were 2 years old. You came straight to New York, to Williamsburg. Or?
We landed in New Orleans. The ship that we were on landed in New Orleans, and we traveled by train from New Orleans to New York, where my father had a sister who came here before the war.
Where in New York?
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx.
And she took us in, and it was Yom Tov, and my father saw, I cannot stay in this house.
They weren't religious.
They weren't religious. He picked himself up and he left. I was very young, so I don't remember any of this. You know,
But he came straight to Williamsburg. Is that?
No, almost straight to Williamsburg. Yes, almost straight to Williamsburg. We wandered around a little, but almost straight to Williamsburg.
When did the Satmar school open?
Satmar school opened when I was about, 6 years old. I didn't go to Satmar school. My first 3 years I went to Beis Yaakov. Right.
Yeah.
And
on
then,
South 9th?
No.
The Hayward one.
Street, right. And then one day my father took me out of Beis Yaakov because the Rebbe was talking about learning Hebrew. The Rebbe did not want anybody to learn Hebrew. Tzioinen.
Zionism. You're not allowed to learn Hebrew.
Right. So my father took me out and put me into Satmar school. And I've been in Satmar school since the 3rd grade.
Wow.
I've been, you know.
Where was the school?
Oh, you don't want to know.
No, it was trailer.
Oh, it was terrible. From one cellar to one, it was awful. Awful until they got a building.
Wow, so you were the pioneer years.
Yes. I am the oldest generation. You know that in Williamsburg, in this community, a community made up of Holocaust survivors. My age, is now the oldest people in Williamsburg.
Except people like my grandmother who are still alive, who are Holocaust survivors. Very few.
Very few, and very, very old.
Yeah. And there's a gap of
20 years. A whole generation. There's a 20-year gap. Your grandmother must be 20 years older than me.
Yeah, she is.
Right? That whole generation was wiped out in the Holocaust. Okay? Now I'm 75. Your grandmother's 95.
Right, yeah.
Those 20 years, you can count the people on one hand, how many survived, who were hidden or for some miraculous means made it, but they're gone. Essentially, they're gone.
Wow. You have a complete internal theology that I think is much more developed than a Satmar graduate.
How many people my age did you talk to? Really, seriously?
My mother.
That's it? I'll introduce you to my friends.
Yeah?
Okay? They talk the same way. I'll introduce you to my siblings. They think the same way. We talk the same way. We do. I think that you think the way you think about me is because I have a knowledge of the outside world too. So it's like you think that nobody else does, but we all do it. We all do.
I know
Seriously.
that people have knowledge of the outside world, but it depends how. It depends how. But see, I was going to say, because I want to say on looking at your house, because I can schmooze with you forever. I wanted to say that this is not common to put pictures of Rebbes. You know, when you do
Very
movies,
uncommon.
It is very uncommon. This
very
you
uncommon.
agree with.
It's very uncommon. I put it up because my grandsons bought it for us.
There was a woman, we went to her apartment. I told you she invited us to her house. She had a picture of 100 grandchildren on her wall.
If somebody has 100 grandchildren, they should put it on the I read a lot of Holocaust literature.
Oh, really?
I wasn't able to read Holocaust literature until I was 45.
Why? It was too much.
I couldn't. Since I'm 45, I cannot read anything else almost. Terrible. I, to this day, cannot watch anything about the Holocaust.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to either.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can read, but I can't watch anything.
Yeah.
To me, people my age, the Holocaust is very, very real to us because our parents were Holocaust survivors, right?
Were they very traumatized?
Some of them more than others.
Some of them more than others.
Some of them more than others. And most of them didn't talk about it.
It's your parents?
No, they didn't talk about it. My father would, after the Passover Seder, he would sit around and tell us some stories. Not the terrible ones.
Uh-huh.
With whom he worked, and for whom he helped, and whom helped him, but not the terrible stories. I mean, they were so mechanized by the time the Hungarian Jews got there. It was over literally in days.
Yeah.
12,000 people a day.
Wow.
The Polish Jews, they didn't have all the technology yet, and they weren't
systemized to the point.
They weren't systemized right, that well. So there were, although the Polish Jews didn't survive at all. If anybody survived, it was the Hungarian Jews. But by the Hungarian Jews, they were organized, mechanized murder. How do you explain this to children?
Yeah.
Which parent can explain this to a child? It makes the world extremely unsafe, and it makes the child, it's very scary.
Yeah.
Even I didn't talk to my children about the Holocaust.
No, that's what I was going to ask you. How do you feel about how the Holocaust is taught here?
It's now there's a distance. There's an actual distance. Nobody knows anybody who was in the Holocaust, you know? So it's a frightening concept, and you have to explain it, right? There are children people ask questions. Why did the Holocaust come? So there's an actual explanation.
What?
What about Victor Miller? He wrote a book.
What's the book?
I'll let you read it.
Do you have a soulful connection to the
Satmar Rebbe very much.
Really?
He was a tzaddik hador. You know what Satmar Rebbe meant to us? When Satmar Rebbe passed away, we actually looked at each other and we felt how the world is not going to continue anymore.
Go on.
How is the world going to continue functioning without Satmar Rebbe? It was
What personal
disaster.
connection did you have to him?
We were Satmar people.
I know, but did you go to him?
Yes.
For bruchas?
Sure.
You had a personal...
Sure.
You know, I didn't...
He wasn't alive anymore by the time.
I know, but the Baruch Moshe was there, but when I grew up...
Right.
I don't think I ever saw him.
The Baruch Moshe, you see, the Baruch Moshe followed Satmar Rebbe. It was a very hard act to follow.
I see.
You know, it was a very difficult, especially people who remembered Satmar Rebbe.
What was your experience of his personality?
Who?
The Satmar Rebbe, the Rabbeinu.
I had such awe. It was as if I was seeing Moshe Rabbeinu, not Satmar Rebbe, but Moshe Rabbeinu sitting there. I remember my husband and I went to him after we got married for a brucha. I stood there shaking.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so endearing. That's so sweet.
It was. I mean, he was larger than life. And you listen to his toiras. Let's say people used to come from all over Shana Rabbah. Shana Rabbah?
Yeah.
And the Rebbe was the type of a person, he cried so much. He cried so much because he had survived the Holocaust. He lost so many people. He was like, you know, when you listen to somebody crying that much, it does something to you. It moves you, you know. It's not cold. It's very...
Yeah, it's stirsome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the story that people know about the Satmar, sorry if I shouldn't be asking this question, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, is, you know, there's the whole controversy around the Satmar Rebbe, which I think it gets very stuck in people's minds.
What are you referring to?
With him leaving all of his followers in Satmar. Here I ask Pearl a question about the Satmar rabbi who was rescued from the clutches of the Nazis while many of his followers did not survive.
People ask me this question. So I try to explain it like this. What do you do with a king? You save the king. You do everything possible to save that king. He wasn't just a plain person. He wasn't just somebody. He was a leader. He was a mover. He was a doer. The world needed him. Mm-hmm. So everything was exerted to save him, to save Belzer Rebbe, to save every Rebbe.
All the Rebbes.
Because these are the people that we need. They're more important than in terms of teaching, in terms of keeping the Yiddishkeit going. We needed to have lived in the time of Satmar Rebbe to understand how people adored him, how people respected him, how people were in awe of him. Everybody that went to Satmar Rebbe literally trembled in his presence.
After Becca stopped rolling his camera, Pearl served us some very special food, a Friday specialty, the kugel and farfel duo. You eat this every Friday during the hours before Shabbos to get a taste of the special foods of Shabbos. Kugel is a dish of ground raw potatoes mixed with eggs and fried or baked, and farfel is a small pasta ball dish. I had been after a long day of touring and traipsing a very, very hot Williamsburg. I was famished and the food was absolutely delicious. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Pearl, and I want to thank her again for inviting me into her home, not just once, and for the many deep conversations and great laughs I shared with her. I hope to bring you more inside glimpse into the Hasidic community, so I hope you'll subscribe, you'll like, you'll share, you comment, and so on and so forth, and stick around. Thanks for watching, or as we say in Yiddish, shkoyach.